everyone to our couples edition video talking type 1 diabetes and relationships. We got some Q&As we want to do. Actually, we got the Q's. We're going to give you the A's. I put out a post on Instagram, on YouTube, and on our podcast and said, give me your questions about what you want to know from a diabetic's perspective and from a non-diabetic's perspective on relationships. So as you know, my name is Matt, and this is
Lisa.
This is my beautiful wife.
Been married for almost 4 years.
Yeah, and that has all been within diabetes. Have you ever known me as not diabetic?
No, I haven't.
So we were friends before we got married, and I was diabetic then as well. She kind of already knew a little bit about what she was getting into. A little bit. It was a different life. I didn't take care of myself back then quite as much. But we're going to jump into the questions. A few of them are directed towards me. A few of them are directed towards Lisa. Actually, most of them are directed towards Lisa. I'm just going to get up and leave. You can do a solo show. And now we're going to start, though. I'm going to start with mine, because I only get like 2. So, mine, let's see. How do you keep from developing any resentment for you eating what I can't? That's an easy answer. I eat kind of whatever I want. You shouldn't be restricted. Now, of course, I follow guidelines for what I eat. I try to eat healthy and all that, but I mean, you agree with the majority of what I eat. You're very healthy.
Yeah, I mean, we don't usually eat the same meals either, and honestly, like, Matt just kind of eats whatever he wants to eat, and we've kind of come into this routine where I'll make food and he'll eat what he wants, and he will eat what he doesn't, or he won't eat what he doesn't want. And if I'm eating a ton of junk food, he'll just make me feel bad about it. So I'm just kidding. It's not that bad.
I'm kind of like a scavenger. I'm like, that looks good. I'm gonna have some of that.
Yeah.
And then I go make my own food.
Or he just like smells my food. So I just give him like a smell.
You have to explain what that even means.
So I'll have something and it'll be like really carby or sugary or I don't know, something.
Or just like something that
Like an example would be like a cinnamon roll. Okay, so I'll have like a cinnamon roll and he'll just look at it and you can see him eyeing it. And so I just like, do you want to smell it? And he just like takes the smell and then he's like, fine.
This is something that
like
I
weird,
started.
But we got used to this.
It's super weird, but I used to look at things before I understood that you can eat whatever you want. I was like, oh man, that looks so good, but I shouldn't have it, right? Where it's like cake or cinnamon rolls or, I don't know, pizza, or whatever, something that looks delicious. And I'll go smell it and be like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm good. And then that was kind of my way of tasting it without tasting it.
Matt's like a special breed of person though, because he has like real incredibly good self-control. So he's always been like that, and even when we were dating, he didn't really eat a ton of junk food. Apparently there was a phase in college I missed where he ate pizzas and had sodas and just injected for all of it, and I wasn't around for that. But the Matt that I've known is very self-disciplined, so he doesn't really ever, I guess, I don't feel like you ever get mad at me for what I eat. Maybe a little judgy, but no, I'm just kidding.
It's true. College was a different time. It was burritos and pizza like every meal. It was good. It was delicious, but not the healthiest. All right. So second question I got was, how do you live in comfort and peace around other people and friends while still managing type 1 diabetes? That one, at first I want to say, you just do, right? But honestly, there is kind of a different mentality going around, because you have to enter a situation thinking about your blood sugars. You're like, okay, I need to manage. If I want to have the Super Bowl snacks, I'm going to have to inject insulin now, but if I want to eat dinner later, I'm going to have insulin stacking, and there is a little bit of extra thought goes into it. So peace of mind, ultimately, and I did a webinar on this recently, I think comes from your choice between fake control and true control. True control, it comes from knowing how different foods affect your blood sugars or exercises, and using that information to give you peace of mind. So the more controlled you are, the easier it is to have peace of mind. Whereas if you don't know what's going to happen, then you're going to stress out about it. Hope that makes sense.
Sounded good to me.
Okay, let's jump over to a Lisa question. One of the many. Okay, we're starting strong.
Okay.
What is the hardest part of being in a relationship with a diabetic?
um, the hardest part about being in a relationship with a diabetic. So, I think the hardest, like, there's a difference between annoying and hardest, and I'm not trying to be mean by saying annoying, but for me, when I think of the hardest things, it would definitely have to be the thought of him dying. I mean, and this happens sometimes when we're going to bed, usually, and if he's not sure about his blood sugars, he'll be like, oh, I've been dropping, whatever, Dexcom will catch it, you know. And then I get a little bit nervous, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I set an alarm or something to wake up and check his Dexcom app, or like on my Follow app, and see what his blood sugars are, just for my peace of mind, because I think one of my biggest fears is waking up to him in like a coma or worse. And so for me, that's the hardest part about all of this, is just the fear of what could happen if tragedy were to strike.
Yeah, that's real. I get that. I mean, that's a hard thing. I'm just gonna give my perspective. I'm grateful that I don't have to think about that. You know, that would be a hard thing to, especially if someone didn't control their diabetes. Like, I didn't control my diabetes when we were first dating, and I don't think you fully understood the dangers because I didn't tell you about them.
No, I was just ignorant.
Yeah, we were both ignorant, and because of my ignorance, she didn't know that there were any dangers involved, and so it's just kind of like, oh, I'll give insulin, take sugar whenever I need it. But now that we know the real dangers that are involved in type 1 diabetes, if I weren't controlled, I think that anxiety, that fear would be a lot higher, because you'd be nagging me to not die if I weren't controlled.
I agree.
Right? So
I agree with
I
that.
think being in control definitely helps with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Here's a fun one. Did devices ever ruin the mood? For example, Omnipod, Dexcom, pumps, etc.
I don't know. Like, what does that mean? Like, if an alarm
I guess
goes off,
we'll
or...
start with, are devices a turn off at all?
No.
Okay.
I feel like I always ask before any of that stuff happens, like, where are your sites? It's kind of just become like a thing.
She's super aware of that, which is incredible. She's like, okay, where are your sites? Because she knows that if she like hugs me and then pulls my tubing or something and it'll rip out, then that's gonna kill the mood, right?
Yeah.
If I have to do a site change,
freak out.
oh my gosh, like ah. So no, she's incredible. Very aware of it.
So I typically know like his Dexcom is gonna be on his arm, and I'm just familiar with where his like sites are for his pump. So I kind of generally am gentle in those areas, I guess. But like I don't know like his rotation schedule and like that. So I'm always asking, where are your sites? And even when he was MDI, I feel like I still was like, generally like just didn't really touch you. Like I just like
doesn't touch
I
me.
just, I just like, I don't know, I'm gentle, and that's like such a funny thing to say, but like I just have learned and conditioned myself to just be like, okay, like
Where are devices?
where like my hands, be gentle.
Oh, you know what?
Use good touch.
Here's
I
a
don't
good
know.
question for you. Do you have a favorite site location on me? Do you prefer my sites to be in one place? Dexcom and pump.
I don't know. I mean, I like your Dexcom on your arm,
Okay.
because
As opposed to abdomen.
yeah, I always feel I just get nervous that I'm gonna like. Are we still talking about like if this were in the
Sexual.
mood? Yeah, I get nervous that I would like tear it off or something on accident if they're on your stomach. I mean, granted though, like you have other sites on your stomach. I guess they're just kind of like out of the way.
True.
I'm trying
Mine
to
are kind of like on the
He's
love
never
handle
really
area.
worn his Dexcom on his stomach. I mean, like maybe a few
I mean,
times,
I
and
totally
it's fine.
wear
It's
it
never
where I'm
worked.
supposed to on my stomach. No, yeah,
I
my sites are usually kind of out of the way. They're on the side or on my lower back, or my butt or my thighs.
You know when it kills the
Kinda,
mood?
yeah.
It kills the mood when I want to cuddle with him and he won't like turn his body towards me and he'll just like, it's like he's shunning me or something because he's like, oh, my sight's on my right side and I am sleeping on his left. Wait,
So if
I
my
don't know.
sights
Can I
match
start?
up, like right now, they're both on my left side, my left arm and my left love handle. So I'll stay on my right side only, and if he's on my left side, I'm like, I don't want to put all my pressure on top of my sights and roll over.
Yes, then I'm like, are you mad at me? And then,
I'm like, no,
so like
it's fine.
that's when it would kill the mood, I guess, in that sense. But it's more of like cuddling, I guess, like in the other sense, you don't really care where
Yeah,
your sights are.
that's true. Mood changes when priorities change.
And we kind of just laugh when your Dexcom goes off, I think, now,
Yeah.
or be like, hey, I just like pop up and get him sugar or something, or
Yeah,
I
can
guess we'll just
incorporate
take a break.
candy. Why
I don't think it's ever really gotten in the way of anything.
What about when I was dropping and you wanted to spark something up?
Are you trying to get me to talk about that? Like how, okay, it's not something I'm proud of, but
I'm sure everyone that's dating a dating a diabetic has gone through this phase.
definitely, it's definitely something that I regret, and I feel bad about it, so I don't need people in the comments to tell me how horrible it was. And I don't do this anymore, but like he would be like 90 or something or 80, and I'd just be like, hey, you wanna go fool around? And then he would
With
just be
like insulin on board though.
okay,
Not...
so like I'm like, oh, he's at a good number, or like a decent number, and then he would just be like, oh no, I don't want to drop, like it's gonna make me drop. I'm like, it's not gonna make you drop, like you're fine. And then he would just be like, fine, whatever, and then he would drop, and he would just be like, look what happened. And then I just feel so bad. I felt really bad, and I was like, oh my gosh, I like pressured him, or
and I just give her a
I
hard
just
time
felt
for
so
it.
bad about it, so I just, anyway, I don't do that. I think it only happened a few times.
She's super
I only think
aware
it
of
happened a few times. Afterwards, I felt so horrible, and I was just like, I can't be this kind of person. Like, who does that? Like, so anyways, I mean, it's like serious. You shouldn't pressure people to have sex with you. But like, definitely be respectful of their numbers and how they feel about their numbers, because what might be like, even it can be variable day to day. Like an 80s could be, he could feel fine in the 80s and be like, oh, I'm fine to do whatever. But another day he'd be like, you know, today's kind of just been a weird day and my blood sugars are all over the place and I'm just not comfortable with it. And you just gotta respect them and their boundaries.
That's fair. Yeah. We gotta blaze these questions just a lot. How do you deal with, kind of already hit this one, but we'll go through it. How do you deal with wanting to make a carb-heavy meal or dessert knowing your significant other shouldn't eat it?
It's easy. You just put insulin in the food and then it kind of, no, I'm just kidding.
Like, where are you
I'm
going
just
with
kidding.
this?
Carb counting the food is hard. It just takes a long time and I'm just not
It's
that
effort for
patient.
sure. I'll see her doing like math
It's
on
like,
notepads
yeah,
and stuff,
it's-
which
it's-
is incredible. I
we
gotta just show her off for a second. Nobody does that, right? I mean, she carb counts.
I'm sure people do.
It's very rare. Where the spouse, the non-diabetic, does, she will carb count and write down because she knows that I won't eat it if there's not a carb count.
And I double check it because God forbid I get it wrong.
It happened
and then
once.
He's just like, oh, I can't trust anything. What do you do now? So he goes off by 10 carbs or something, which I know is significant, and I felt horrible about it. Just want to cook my husband a meal. Jeez, like. Anyway, carb counting. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm not doing it for this. I'm sorry, and like you can guess and have a good time with it. This is like my rough estimate.
Yeah, and
But,
sometimes rough estimate's enough.
But usually he won't want to eat what I'm making.
Yeah, we eat, like, honestly, most times it's different meals. I just kind of make my own thing. I eat a lot more than you do. That's why I kind of giggled when it said, how do you deal with wanting to make a carb-heavy meal? My meals are heavier in carbs than hers are. Like,
Yeah.
I eat probably 2 or 3 times the amount of carbs that you do. Which is what I love telling people, because it blows their minds that you can have a ton of carbs as a diabetic and still see great blood sugars. So it is possible. But yeah, we eat different meals for the most part. Like I said, I'm kind of a scavenger. I'll be like, oh, that looks good. Can I have some? And
We used to eat a lot more meals together when we were
Yeah.
first married, but that kind of changed after you went through everything that you went through. So
get my regiment. It's like, all right, these foods are awesome for me. I just kind of stuck with that. It's easy when you know what you're gonna eat.
and we kind of stick to the same recipes, so that
Yeah.
way it's like I already carb counted this, and so we kind of have a good estimate.
For sure. All right, how do you show support when he is going through a rough time?
I always just try to say, like, how can I help you right now? And then he'll usually say, you can't help me. And then I'll say, no, but really, like, what can I do? There has to be something I can do. Like, can I give you a foot massage? Or like, everyone loves foot massages. Everyone loves massages.
Oh,
or,
man.
which is generalized. And then, like, oh, there's probably someone that doesn't like that. But he likes it.
That-
So
it's so
usually when I
nice,
kind of
yeah.
just, like, say that, like, do you want me to scratch your back? Or things like that. So I'll try to kind of do that, and then he'll start opening up about what's going on, because I feel like usually if you're upset about something, you won't always talk about it. Kind of have to like bring him to a place where he feels like he can
Bring
be
it out.
vulnerable. Yeah.
It's true. And I think what she said in the beginning, which is, how can I help? Just being available, honestly. Most of the time, like for me, diabetes, most of the time I don't need help. I have glucose tabs and juice, whatever. But the fact that she's offering help is showing me that she loves me, that she's caring for me. So that, to me, is showing support. So the question was, how do you show support? That's it. Be available. I think that's my favorite thing that you can do. I don't need your help most of the time, but
Yeah.
knowing that you're available is like, she does care.
Offering to go with you on a walk if you're
Yeah.
high, or
We get lots of walks in whenever I go high.
get just bringing him juice or
Yeah.
tabs or whatever you
Just
need
sitting
when
right
he's
there next to
little.
me, and I'm like, oh, thanks.
And then just kind
in
of like
case.
checking in, even just like sending him a text, like, are you okay?
But I did go over this in the last episode. Knowing boundaries. We set boundaries where she's not going to text me all day long and like, oh, your blood sugars are a little bit high, you should take some insulin. Oh, they're starting to go low, you should eat some sugar. We have boundaries, right? We know for us that she'll only text me if I'm actually low. Like, hey, are you okay? And I appreciate that. But some people might not. So that's where you discuss it with each other and determine what those
Yeah.
boundaries are.
And it's really rare that he's high. I feel like I don't even know what I would say if you were high. Like,
What are you doing with your
I would
life?
just been like, what happened, bud? I'm just kidding. I don't even know what I would say. I usually, because I don't get your high alerts, so I wouldn't typically.
true.
I'm pretty
It's
busy
done on
in the
purpose.
day. And then another boundary, which I think is important, is like to not check their blood sugars when you're with them, like around them, unless like they're having trouble.
That's
Be like,
private information.
Hey, what are your blood sugars? And then like they don't want to share. I don't even, or even asking like, what are your blood sugars all the time is kind of like probably annoying. And
It's overwhelming. But also,
And
I
yeah.
used to be overwhelming with my communication to you. I used to tell her my blood sugars were like all the time when I was running my experiments for like 2 years or whatever. I'd be like, oh my gosh, you won't even believe this. I dropped like 100 points at this point in the day, and then this meal maybe go up to 220 or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
man,
true.
I put her through the ringer. All right, we got a couple more questions. How do you feel? This is an important one for dating, I think. How did you feel knowing your spouse had a life-threatening disease that was always going to be there?
It's funny because I have gotten this question a few times, and like even like someone will come up to me at a conference, we'll be at boothing at boothing, is that what it is? Tabling. I don't know.
Tabling.
And they're like, oh, you married him and you knew he had diabetes? I'm like, we're at a freaking diabetes conference
Oh, man,
right
that's
now.
old.
Are you serious? It was never thought, and honestly, that's because I was ignorant. Also though, just like my personality and my types, I'm extremely loyal, and so once I was just like, all right, whatever, like, is going on with you, we'll figure it out together. When he started taking more serious care of his diabetes, we were dating, I like bought a book about diabetes. I like read it a few times to try to learn about diabetes.
See how amazing she is?
And like not everyone needs to do this, just like
Mhm.
listen. And diabetes isn't him, it's just part of him. And I think that something for me that I take for granted a little bit is how well he takes care of himself. And I think that it would be a lot more stressful for me if you didn't take care of yourself as well as you do, because I would be constantly worried about the severe hypos or DKA on the other end of the spectrum. So I think that, I think I might have been going off on a tangent, but I mean, I have autoimmune disease as well. I have Crohn's disease, but it's different than for me because I'm in remission and I've been in remission for like 10 years. So,
We actually got diagnosed in the same year. You
Yeah.
guys know that?
so like, and diabetes is something he deals with every single day.
All right, so we're gonna jump into our next question. How did you feel knowing your spouse had a life-threatening disease that was always going to be there?
Like when you first told me, or
That's true. I guess we weren't spouses initially. So
Yeah.
when we first met, or first started dating,
the first
knowing that I was gonna
time,
have, because you didn't. Really,
the first time you ever told me I was in a parking lot of Rubio's,
I remember that.
and you're like, I have to tell you something. I was like, oh my gosh.
It was a real thing.
This kid, and then he like pulled his shirt up and he like
I just showed
injected
him my abs.
insulin. Yeah, I was like, what is he doing? And he injected insulin. He's like, I have diabetes. And
It's like super emo.
I'm
I have
pretty sure I was
diabetes.
just like, okay. And then we just like went and ate, and I was like, I have Crohn's disease. Cool. And that was just because I was ignorant. I didn't know what diabetes really meant. I knew a kid in my high school that had diabetes, but I
didn't know
wasn't.
that.
Yeah,
Oh.
there was a kid in my class that had diabetes. But I didn't know that. I just didn't know. So, fast forward to when we're dating, and I still didn't really understand it. Fast forward to when we're getting serious dating and like starting to talk about marriage, and then like, okay, this is like a thing, and
And that matched up when I started to take care of myself. I was kind of
Yeah.
ignorant too, so I had actually asked you to help me remember to test my blood sugars because I
Yeah.
wasn't doing that.
just like once a day. Just
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I just
Yeah.
didn't even care.
Yeah, so anyway, to answer that question, and sadly, it's a question that I've got multiple times, even at conferences for diabetes or people living with diabetes, and I'm just like,
For shame.
wow, and I always just say, it doesn't change the way I feel about him at all. It's not who he is, it's just part of him, and we face it together as a couple, and whatever challenges come our way, we'll just, face it together. And I mean, I'm not ignorant now. I know the complications that can happen, but I'm grateful to have a partner that, really invests in his health and takes care of himself and includes me in those times so that I can help when I can.
Yeah. All right, we gotta run through these questions because it is a long video. I know, guys. What's something you wish diabetics understood more about dating someone with diabetes? So, like, what do you wish I knew about you dating me? I think.
I guess I just, I'm not 100% sure about that. I feel like we've kind of got a really good groove going, and I mean, communication's really big. And what I would say to people, who are, it's not easy. And I mean, I know that you know that already, probably. So, I mean, it's not impossible either. It's just something you gotta communicate about and just kind of check in with your partner and see like where they're at and how they're doing and stuff, because sometimes we'll talk about how his experiences, how he was, maybe he had a like really bad hypo, and then be like, that affected me too, but we don't always talk about that. So
communication is key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last question for you. When you met, did the diabetes worry you, and do you have to wake him up for a low?
So I kind of answered that in the previous question. It didn't necessarily worry me. I think it was like when we got married and he started experiencing more of the complications, like.
Well, not complications.
Well, okay, sorry, you know.
Frustrations, maybe.
Yeah, or like severe hypos. I think like experiencing that and seeing worry on his face, because he never shows like that. Seeing fear in him was really scary, and so that is when it has worried me. And I do wake him up. I have woken him up a few times to his Dexcom, which I'm grateful that I am able to do. I mean, he's so sensitive to his alarm now that he really doesn't. He wakes up before I do to correct a low, but there's times when he was in Europe or something traveling, and I called him because I got an alarm that he was low. He woke up and I was like, "Hey, you're in the 40s. I should do something about that."
Yeah,
So
that's where Dexcom Follow comes in super handy.
yeah, Dexcom's been a lifesaver for sure. I mean, he started wearing that when we got married, so we didn't have that when we were dating, and it definitely is a big game changer.
Very true. All right, I'm going to do some rapid fire for a few questions that were for me. One, should you share you have type 1 on the first date? I answered that in our podcast episode. I basically said if it's short term, like you're just meeting them, I personally wouldn't share it unless I saw long-term potential. So I'd wait to see if we're going to keep dating, and then I would tell them. But if you're going out to eat, like, you should probably warn them it's not heroin or whatever, steroids or something. You know, if it's going to come up naturally, yeah, talk about it. But, you know, there's no reason to change the conversation to an hour-long conversation about diabetes if it's your first date and you don't know if you're going to see long-term potential. That's just the way that I saw it. How does your spouse not always stress about your diabetes? We kind of answered that. I take care of myself very well now. And, you know, it's changed in the past where I didn't take care of myself. But now, I think that helps you not to stress quite as much.
Yeah, you just kind of, you gotta surrender that and you know, trust that he can take care of himself and step in when he needs me.
Yeah. Would you rather date a fellow diabetic or a non-diabetic? I answered that in the podcast as well. Answer is
non-diabetic, hopefully.
Answer is I want to date my wife. No, I'm kidding. Ultimately, I said that if you're falling in love with somebody, it shouldn't matter if they have type 1 or not. You know, I found out she had Crohn's disease. Didn't change anything. She found out I had type 1, didn't change anything. You accept whatever that person is dealing with because you love them, and that's how it should be. Last question I got in here was, I know that my wife is often overwhelmed with my type 1 diabetes. How can I make her life easier? Great question. Best thing you can do is take responsibility for your diabetes, control it to your best abilities so that she doesn't have to worry about you. I know that if I were to stop caring about my diabetes, it would put a lot of stress on her because that means future me is going to either not be there, I could die from a hypo in the night, or high blood sugars could cause complications. Maybe I'm not as available for our future family. Like, if you don't take care of yourself, you're putting a burden on your spouse. That's not fair. Take care of your own stuff so that you guys can focus on each other instead of on your diabetes. So that is a long video. Thank you guys for staying with us the whole time. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us today. It was super fun. If you guys think she should come on to more videos, you should comment below.
I like talking about it.
And we'll figure out some other videos to chat about. It's so super fun. If you have other questions, drop them below. I'll see if I can answer those about diabetes or whatever. What you guys are going to want to do now is there's a button that's going to appear right there. You're going to want to hit that button to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss other videos like this, because these type of videos go up weekly. So make sure you hit that button, subscribe. I wish you all the best of blood sugars. I wish you happy relationships with type 1 diabetes. It is possible. Go out there, achieve your dreams, and keep up the fight.